Hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to go over ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. Joe Rogan and Bret Weinstein are discussing it, and I want to give our insights on their conversation. All right, let's get into this.
But I want to talk about Chat GPT.
Fascinating question.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with it at all?
I have not, but someone, the gentleman who runs the JRE companion page, made a rap with Chat GPT. Like, was it if Kanye West wrote a rap for Chat GPT? They put it on Instagram, but it's like it seems like a person saying it. Like,
You want to try it?
no.
We could try anything you want.
I mean, it takes a long time.
Not really.
His thing took like 48 minutes to do.
Well, whatever you want to look up right now, we can do it.
Yeah, the problem is you have to cajole it. It'll get
gotta know how to
something
use
wrong,
it.
and you have
But
to
let's
say,
just
no, not
explain
that
what
way.
it is.
So ChatGPT is a large language model trained artificial intelligence, which is, let's just say, it can be awful, but it is often surprisingly good at answering questions you might have about how to do things. One of the great triumphs of it is that coders are now asking it to solve coding problems, and it will actually write code that is functional. It's pretty amazing. And it also, there's an implementation of it that if you feed it up to 3 tweets, it will write a New York Times story in one of 5 genres, optimistic, pessimistic, neutral. And, it's you don't really need the New York Times anymore because it's pretty good at this job, right? So on the one hand, it's all very interesting that we're living in an era in which there is at least, and this is a prototype, right? This is a prototype that was specifically trained and then placed on the internet so people could play with it. And I've seen lots of interesting uses. It's going to get better, right? We're dealing with ChatGPT 3. There's going to be a ChatGPT 4, which is going to be that much better because it will be built with the improvements that have been gained through turning this one loose on the world. But I have to say, I am quite alarmed. Not only that this thing exists, but I don't think we're ready for it. And I don't think we're ready for it in a couple different ways. I mean, if you want to comfort yourself and say, well, this isn't that serious that we have this AI that can do these really shocking things, the comforting thing is that the way it's programmed, it doesn't know what it's saying. It doesn't matter that it convinces you that it's saying something and it means it and that it seems like a creative entity. What it's doing is it is basically using a predictive model that has been trained on a huge data set of written language, right? So the answer is, if you take 3 words in a row, can you predict what the next word is going to be? And they've exposed it to a large data set, and it's gotten really good at predicting basically these sequences to the point that it can now, if you prompt it correctly, it can spit out these very long explanations. Some of them are dead wrong. Sometimes they're right on target. But I have 2 concerns about it. One, if you imagine that this thing just gets a little better than it is, which is inevitable, that it's going to make actual insight that much harder to spot, right? In other words, if you become expert at operating this thing, at querying it, and it becomes better at understanding a wider range of topics because they turn it loose on everything that's written on the internet, for example, right? Then the point is the ability to fake expertise is going to go through the roof. I don't think we know how we're going to police a world in which, this problem's already bad enough. Most academics are fakers. They don't know that, right? They trained in something, they wrote a dissertation, they think they're experts, but you can see when something unexpected happens, like the pandemic, you get just broad-scale failure across entire disciplines where nobody seems to get it right, right? So in that world, this is going to be even worse because now you have an artificial intelligence able to generate things in plain English that are often full of true information, but you don't know whether what generated it is some, brain dead model or something else. That's one concern. And then the other concern is when we say, well, ChatGPT doesn't know what it's saying. It's not conscious. We know it's not conscious because it's not programmed to have a consciousness. We are actually ignoring the other half of the story, which is that we don't know how human consciousness works, and we don't know how it develops in a child, right? A child is exposed to a world of adults talking around them, and the child experiments first with phonemes and then words and then clusters of words and then sentences. And by doing something that isn't all that far from what ChatGPT is doing, it ends up becoming a conscious individual. And so I think it's clear that ChatGPT isn't conscious. It couldn't be. But it isn't clear, to me at least, that we are not suddenly stepping onto a process that produces that very quickly without us even necessarily knowing it.
Oof. And what steps, if any, can be done to mitigate that at this point?
Well, it's interesting. I I wrote a paper, which I never published anywhere, in, I think, 2016 about this very issue. In fact, I used basically the argument that you could attain artificial general intelligence by imbuing computers with a childlike play environment for language and then exposing them to a huge data set, which is not exactly what's happened here, but it's in the ballpark. And I would argue, and I did argue, that one needs to build an architecture in which this can't get away from you, right? And so the architecture that I advocate for is actually a metamorphosis architecture, where metamorphosis is not allowed. It is an affirmative choice of humans. So in other words, if you think about, let's say that we developed some artificial frogs to do some job, to clear some waterway of something, and we imbued them with an intelligence so that they could learn to clear the waterway better, but we worried that they might learn to do something that we don't want them to do, and that we would have no way of arresting it once these frogs were released in the wild and capable of producing more of themselves. But if what you say is, well, at the point at which you go from a tadpole to a frog, you have to ask us if you can go, right? There's no automatic transition from a tadpole to a frog. There are still dangers, right? In the case of GPT chat, I think some of the artificial intelligence existential risk folks would tell you that one of the dangers is that the chat AI could convince you to do its bidding, right? As you said, when you were looking at this, it felt like a person, right? And the point is, something that feels like a person can play on your emotions, right? Can that be used to cause a fail-safe to be removed? Maybe.
All right, I want to get your thoughts first of what you think before I catch you up on some of the crazy world news that has to do with this program.
Well, it's really interesting. Is all I could think of was, have you seen Sarah Connor? With the Terminator, and because it just evolves and evolves. But part of my curiosity is why do we need this? What is the real purpose of having this? And is this the one that also when it speaks, it uses the voice that from the recordings?
No, not. Oh, it can. No. It can, but that's not solely what it is. So right here, there's a comment from
politicians.
This guy.
Politicians, it's a boon for them because they want to say what you want to hear anyways. So if they can get a lead into what it is you want to hear, and this thing will write their speeches for them.
Right. So right. So this is one of the things that was. I think it was this guy. Right. I believe is this one right here. This video, the advancement of ChatGPT is a little scary. Nope, not that one. Basically, there was a guy in here in the comment section that he was working on some code for, I'm not sure what it was. He didn't really specify what the code was, but it was a fairly complex chain of codes that had to communicate with each other. Boom, 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 boom. And what would take him weeks to get all the code to check each box so that way there was no error. It took ChatGPT 3 days.
Wow.
Another one is a lot of big corporations. A bunch of big Fortune 500 corporations are experimenting right now with ChatGPT and eliminating, essentially, I think the goal is long term eliminate their entire workforce. Like engineers, you won't need them because if you can plug in the variables, right? You can, if you tell it what the variables are, you don't need an engineer to write it. You just have the software push it out. You don't need someone to do that. The marketing, writing the proposals, doing all the work that, go bid for the jobs, all that's gone because all the client has to do. In the case of the big companies, they mostly do work for the government. So if the government accepts, like it has ChatGPT on its receiving side and it's ChatGPT on the sending side, you got two ChatGPTs talking and communicating with each other. What
negotiating, maybe.
Right, negotiating with each other. But what that would do is the first company in each industry to use it will put all the other ones out of business overnight. Because
it'll figure that out.
It would accelerate so fast. Meaning you could bid for, let's call it 15 million bids of jobs, right? With all the entities in the country, all the government entities, right? All thousands of jobs. And let's just call it, let's say it's an engineering firm, right? And it bids for all these jobs perfectly. And the receiving entity, the government, is also receiving it through ChatGPT, and it's registering as perfectly. The first company to do it, it would be submit 100%. All companies, boom, this one. So all jobs would go to this one company. And I'm simplifying it a little bit, but at the same time, when you could submit what takes, millions of dollars with staff and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you can get rid of them all and do it, and your margin goes high, their stock would go from, let's just say, pick a random number, $100 a share. Without splitting, it would be millions of dollars a share. I mean, millions of dollars a share, because you would own it all. There would be no stop, because it would go infinite to scale.
And the other competitors would go to zero or less.
Right. They go out of business because there is no, because the first one
to lose your competition.
Right. The first one to do it would accelerate logarithmically infinitely fast.
Yeah.
And the other ones, even if they got in and started doing it, they still will never go.
It'll be behind.
It will always be behind, even if they're infinitely fast. They're just infinitely further behind.
Right.
He who goes light speed first, even if the other person's going light speed, you'll never catch up.
Right.
And that is a huge problem industry-wise. And so most of these Fortune 500 companies, they get writing articles all over Forbes talking about how to utilize ChatGPT. You have hedge funds and index funds and mutual funds, people like Vanguard, experimenting to see if they can rotate indexes into being ChatGPT day trading.
Wow.
Think about that.
Well, Vegas, they don't let you count the cards.
Right. Well, imagine a computer that could trade so fast and manipulate the market so quickly. You would never be able to catch up. It can load a stock, and when you're investing it thinking it's going up, there's a lot of people that'll chase trade, and then all of a sudden it's dumping, and it's dumping at light speed, and you could never sue it.
Yeah.
Because it's not using insider information. It's just good. It's fast. It's faster than you will ever be. You have to click a button and say, do this and do that, and over here and sell. It just does it. And That is so, and then there's obviously like the deep faking, which is what you're talking about. And yes, they are impaired. Like, I know I don't think the audience actually knows, but I work in the film industry. And there's already weird stuff going on with scripts being produced by Chat GPT in the hundreds of thousands. And you don't even know if if you get sent a script and it's good, you could be like, well, yes, you could just argue, yes, it's a good script. But who do you give it copyright to? Owners of Chat GPT? The guy that punched in the algorithm? That put in, said, make script like this, and just
Yeah.
fit, punched out a bunch of words. It's super strange. And then on top of it, it gets even crazier. So you compare the AI side of ChatGPT. It's just the AI, all these AI programs, and you're getting them to work with each other, where they can create AI animation with real people. So it's like it creates sometimes they'll do it with just straight, it's animation, it's cartoon, and then there's also ones that they've done where they're using real people and they're using Unreal Engine. They're hold on, I'm getting I guess I can't stop it. That was unfortunate. Yeah, so they can't what do you call it? Yeah, they're generating content, not creating anything. They're just generating content, which is wild. So yeah, what do you think about all that? Are you gone? Did I lose you? Hey,
I should call you back or what?
what happened?
I don't know.
Oh,
My screen went like the call ended almost.
gotcha. Well, so anyways, yeah, and I've finished
I was
my
thinking
yeah,
I was thinking the CPT got a hold of you or whatever.
shit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about all that?
I think it's quite frightening, and when you take the humanity out of everything, what are you left with? I mean, it's we could do ourselves in by our own creation, and it's like when man was first created, walking around, and later on he came up with, well, we need to get together as groups, then we need to have a leader. They decided, and then keep people from stealing from or whatever, and then they'd get their leader, and they'd just go conquer. The next thing you know, the whole world changes in ways that they never suspected it would. And this sounds like something that we could very well be doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if one of our enemies, Russia or China, get it?
They already got
What
it.
happens?
It's
Yeah.
open source.
So what if they use it against us? I mean, it's just dangerous. I mean, how do you block this stuff? How do you put limits on what you make an agreement? I mean, that won't hold water.
Right.
It's quite frightening. I mean, because really what we end up living in is a world where we have absolutely no control.
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm thinking even AI is with if they can run programs and say, okay, what are the reactions going to be of the people if we do this? Say, take away the right to own arms or
Right.
or whatever it happens to be. COVID, they could run what we put up with for COVID through that program and go, okay, well, we know that the breaking point isn't here. Where is that breaking point?
Right.
And just stay on this side of the breaking point, or maybe that breaking point moves if you give it time, so you need to wait like another year or 3 months or 2 months before you take the next step to snatch their freedoms away. Who knows what they're doing with it? And it's really quite frightening.
Yeah. Yeah. This is wild, and it's going to be I guarantee you that there's going to be a lot of discussion about how this is going to continue changing over time. But if you guys like this segment and you guys have any thoughts on ChatGPT yourself, comment down down below. Like and subscribe, and see you guys on the next one.
Super fun.